This is tip 2. This is just a test to see if it's working. And this is the 7th of January 2004, and I'm tipping Anna Irvine. Right, Anna, what did you do when you left school?
Well, I left the school at 14, and I sort of had a ready-made job because my father had the shop and the post office and the pub, so there were no question but what I would give to work for him. I had the chance, I could have gone on to the school, but at that time I suffered a lot with asthma. And well, I wasn't caring about going to school anyway, so I luckily was as happy that they made that decision. They made the decision that I would just buy home. But I could then to work just as a shop assistant at the shop. That was at 14, and they were, at that time, they were just me and another lass, slightly older as me. And my father, and he did most of the office work, but his cousin helped out at the shop, and that was 8 o'clock in the morning till 6, or Friday and Saturday was 8 till 8. So it was a pretty long day for a 14-year-old. And I mean, it was pretty hard work because at that time the shop sold everything. It wasn't just groceries. It sold animal feeding and paraffin, petrol, nails, wood, rope, and we even did the undertaking. So it was, I mean, you're just expected to do it, but, and I mean, luckily they were doing it, but I mean, when I think, no, 14-year-old and being expected to lift a half a hundredweight hen's meal, it was pretty heavy work, but I mean, it was just, we just did it, and that was it. And we also had the butcher's horse, and in summer, there were maybe 12, 14 sheep killed every week. And that was just part of our job, was to cut up that sheep, which I can mind to struggle a sand up and down the rug of that sheep. But there it was. And another thing that made life very complicated was that everything was on ration, and if it didn't come, which very often the supplies didn't come, then everybody was in such a bad mood, and you were the first thing they said, so you got to blame for no matter what was.
Yeah.
So I think you developed the high little rhinoceros put up with us.
How did the rationing work then?
Well, you see, they had the ration books and they had their bread coupons, and they were just so many ounces of this and so many ounces of that. Well, butter, tea, sugar, bread, meat, every mortal thing, sweeties, every mortal thing was ration. I cannot mind, I think you had to cut out the coupons out of the books as you give the stuff to them. Well, lots of times, like sweeties, they were no sweeties. So that was that, but then butter and fat and cheese had all come in bulk, and it wasn't like nowadays where you would cut a slab of cheese and weigh it and you could have priced it, whatever it was. But you had to cut it, and if you were cut over much, it had to be cut off again, for if you got anybody half an ounce too much, well, that meant that somebody else got a half an ounce too little. So it was pretty hard going sometimes to keep it all sorted out. Then there was some kind of a thing that, if I might write, that they didn't take sugar, they could get jam. So you had to watch that they weren't gotten the sugar for and still wanting jam. And another thing, no, that wasn't a ration, but was in short supply, was cigarettes. I'm seeing was having to just 10 cigarettes till a body to try and pair them out. And there were many a body that come in and got 10 cigarettes that we knew fine well never smoked, but what could you say?
Yeah.
You couldn't say anything. I'm sure the animal feeding was rationed too. There was some sort of a thing about hut, but that wasn't such a problem as the food. And then we kept drapery, so they were again then the clothes coupons.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my father branched into knitwear, then wool, even the wool, the wasn't was on coupon. So that was a great relief when that all came to an end, and then it was free for all. And that was first come, first served then.
How many folk craft in the shop then?
Well, at that time there were just 3 besides my father, but then like the undertaking, there were a man that came for Urfest and made the coffee. And there were another man that came and butchered the sheep. So they weren't really employed. I mean, they were employed in a sense, but they weren't really to be called an employee. They were just paid for their
What was the undertaker?
It was a Gifford Watchster for Urfest. And he made them until he was no longer able. So there were many a time when I was had to get out of bed up in the night and get into the shop, and someone would be died and they would be come for a shroud, and that had to be gotten to them, and we had to keep all that sort of wood to make the coffins with, and the handles and the linings and that. And then I think there were lots of times that my father had a pretty when he actually had to go and deliver the coffin of the folk had no way of getting it. And then of course the pub was. And but my father and Auntie Manson used to do the pub between them, because it wasn't like nowadays. It didn't wide open. I think they closed it maybe 8 or 9 then. But there were lots of funds then. This old men coming to buy their Christmas bottles, and then they would, you see, had the business, they sort of treated the business like a bank, because they would come maybe and sell a cow at the rope, but the money, they wouldn't take the money, it would be left at the shop. And then, you see, they would work after us, they would come and whatever they bought was charged to them. And then at the end of the year, they would come and what we could settle. Their account was added up, and if they had any money left, they got it. And of course, they had any money left, the children needed a dram for their settling. But that's a long gone days.
Yeah.
That.
So folk would have sold you their marking then, did they?
Well, that used to be afore I got to work at the shop. They bought hosiery, but then that was far away, because there used to be 3 partners of the business, and one of them looked after that, and he died, and when he died, that fell into. Well, there were no more on. But then in 1947 my father got some knitting machines, and he started buying in knitwear and exporting knitwear then. So
what did he do with the knitting machines? Did he put them to folk?
No,
right.
No, come 1947 we moved to Larson, which was up above the house up above the hotel, and that was the same year as he started up, and there were a room at the back of the shop, and we had 4 knitting machines in there. But then the house house where the buses became empty. And that really belonged to the business as well. And he converted 2 rooms in there. And we had either 10 or 12 knitting machines. And we had lasses that came in and wrote every day. And when that started, I can't mind why, but he put me to help the wife that was running that. And for that day till we sold, that was, I wrote with the knitwear, I was no longer at the shop. And you see, in a way, I mean, it was like 3 separate businesses. There were the shop and the post office and the pub and the knitwear. So if we had a bad year, that's the advantage of having that, was that if we had a bad year at the shop, with the pub and the knitwear propped them up. If we had a bad year, say at the knitwear, well, the pub and the shop kept that going. So I can see why country businesses struggle now when they just have the one thing.
Did you have a van?
Yes, we had a van, and that was after the war. They started up the van again. And in the man that wrote in the shop previously, he was called up and he go to the Navy, Peter Peterson. And he come back to the shop, and then he did the van. And that was, of course, another way. You had to prepare all that stuff for the van, for he was out every day of the week. And you either had lines of messages that you made up in boxes for them, but then the stuff had to be weighed up and made ready for the van. So we really
had it.
Quite a busy life.
Slightly different subject, and I'm going back to the shop again, but you said you had asthma.
Yes.
I mean, it must have been, you were lifting weights and stuff like that, it must have been hard on you with asthma. How did they treat that then?
Oh, there were no treatment.
There were no treatment?
There were no treatment. But they did say, I thought I was about 8 or 9 when it started. They thought, seeing I was started at then, I would have a chance of growing out. So by about the time that I was 16, I only maybe got an attack if I got a cold, and I just eventually had went. So they were proved right and that, but I did with here, you could buy a herbal mixture that you could inhale, and I had that, which helped it a bit. But they were no inhalers, of course, but I suppose the inhaler works with the same idea, but be a better medication inside it. You was just a herbal mixture that you really set fire to, and you just sort of inhaled with this, but a tool over your head and inhaled this. No, and one thing that was, I had to buy Otto as a alderbairn was actually hay.
Right.
I could not go with the hay to the lambs or anything like that, or I'd just been wheezing and no time. So maybe in a way it maybe was an allergic thing.
Maybe a hay fever.
Yes, kind of. But that was.
The knitwear didn't affect you then?
No.
No.
Maybe if we take bleached anything with sulphur, for if you had unbleached thing, you had here a smoky box. It was just a wooden box with ribs across them, and then they were opening at the bottom, and you just put in a metal shovel of coils, and the sulphur was just sort of flung up at the top of this, and the lid closed down and the bottom closed up, and it was left till next day, and then it would have been wet. And that I couldn't maybe go too close to that.
So what was the routine then with the knitwear side of it? You get into the knitwear, what kind of things did you buy?
Well, we bought all manner of fairals and we bought Spencers and shawls and berets and gloves and mittens and socks, just anything and everything. Then we had knitwear agents. We went in America and went in France and went in London. And so had sort of what we bought depended on what they ordered. Say they ordered a lot of gloves, well we had to try and buy a lot of gloves. And then of course there were a lot of plain knitwear, which was what the machine made. And that mainly good to Fifth Avenue in New York and in various places over the continent. We had a lovely, there's no much to do with Shetland, but we had a lovely French agent that spoke beautiful English, but he'd had an English nanny. But he died very suddenly, and the next woman we got could speak no English, and we could speak no French. So she had to bring an interpreter with us, and she would bring this woman with her to interpret what she was.
Yeah. Did she come here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Occasionally, my father had to go to London, but most times they came to Lair, or they would come, the first Frenchman, he used to come, he would come to Hulswick. Of course the one in London was just an Englishman, and he generally just phoned or rapped, he never bothered. But I mean, that was a very extensive business, and we were really very busy because I had a deadline. If they wanted it on the 7th of January, well, they had to get it on the 7th of January, and that was it. So that we carried on that until 1975. And of course the shop came on and the pub came on. And
did the father acquire the shop? Like, did he buy it, or did he?
He got to work in the shop as a boy of 14 in 1914 to Tom Anderson, and his uncle been married, and that man's son, they all worked there. And then in 1922 Tom Anderson emigrated to New Zealand, and me father and Wally and Jimmy managed to scrap together enough to buy the business, and they got into partnership together. In the intervening time, my father had been called up into the First World War, but the Andersons kept his job open for him until he came back, which was very good. And then you see, first Wally Manson died, and then Jimmy Manson died, and their widows was paid out. My father paid out their share of the business, so he was the sole owner all the time that I wrote with him. And as my sisters grew up, they wrote too, so he had a ready-made work for them.
And did you like it?
No. I only enjoyed my work at the shop when I got back to work to the mine at Boughton Farmers. And I'll tell you what that was. I go to the shop in the morning and come home at 6 o'clock at night, and when I come home at 6 o'clock at night, I never had to think another thing about it. The worry was taken off you, and you see too, maybe some did the privilege working for your father, but I do assure you it was not, because you were expected to do all the dirty work that nobody else would have been expected to do, and if anybody got a day off, well, you had to step in at their place. No, what he was, do you think that he was ill to us or anything like that, and he paid us? We were always paid well to go and read, just same as anybody else, but we were just expected to go that little bit extra. And then you see we had the post office, and that was another thing. We had to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning for the mail, and when it was I had to do that. So it was a lot of work.
So the mail would come in for Lerwick?
Yes.
Yeah. And you sorted that out, and then
we sorted, the mail was sorted at Hulswick. Then the postman came and set off in his rooms, And we also had the telephone exchange. Well, every house didn't, of course, the plots knew, every house didn't have a telephone, but we had the telephone exchange. So you can see at the middle of Surf and Fop at the counter, the telephone exchange would ring and you had to leave them and put through somebody to whatever they were wanting to be putting through till and come back, and you would have to maybe come back till it rang after.
Yeah.
You had to go again, and then the telegrams came, and there were a lot of telegrams in them days, and they all had to be delivered. And
yeah, it's been a busy.
well, it was
Yeah.
a busy life.
Very much so. Were there many shops around?
Well, latterly there were one at Swartwell and one in Aishnes. Well, for years and years, I mean, the Horswick business had been the only business that was, and I mean, it had been there, the shop had been there since 1890.
That's when it was established.
Well, actually, they would have been, they were been a business for 1600 and something. If you're ever at the chance at the booth, you'll see, I gather the names, and you has the names and the date, as far back as it could be traced, but the shop that we used was bigger than 1890 until we sold it at the man at John Muir had bought it bigger than new shop on the end and made the old shop into his dwelling house.
Did the shop have anything to do with the hotel? Did they work together at all?
No. They would order stuff and we would provide stuff, but I mean, there were it wasn't connected.
No.
Why? So mind you, the hotel helped the shop immensely with the quantity of tourists and that it used to be.
So they would come and build stuff
Yes, about knitwear and postcards and wheelchairs. Souvenirs, anything.
Can you mind anything about the hotel, Dana?
Well, I can. I mean, it was only then they opened in April and shut in October, and they were, to begin with, there were very few local folk that got work there. They would bring in staff, or tax staff off of the boats, sometimes the boats and that was maybe a steward off of one of the boats.
Right.
Because you see, it'd be like the shipping company.
Then latterly they did employ local folk, as you should ken, your mother was there.
Yep.
And that made a lot of work for folk. But I mean, the hotel nowadays, they had a van, a car, and they had a lunch, and they would take this, the tourists would come for a week, and they would take them here, there, and everywhere, and take them after the lunch, and take them to the fishing, and all manner of things like that. But I mean, nowadays, the local folk wasn't, they didn't even get into the lunch bar. It was only, very, very latterly they would go even for a drink in there. And I never mind any local folk ever gone for a meal or anything.
No.
That. And some, first when it opened again after the war, there were some really quite well-to-do folk at Cannes. It wasn't just what they would have called trippers, it was a better class of folk. And I mind Princess Elizabeth and Margaret's governess was for her holidays. So we only knew that after she'd gone. Luckily she had to have anonymity while she was there. Things like that. But, and I mean, it was always kept up to scratch, very well painted, and the putting greens at front was cut till an inch of their lives, and everything was beautiful then.
What about doing at the front of the shop then, and the boats and that?
When I was young, bairn, they were the flatboats. That was the steamer come in once a week, and the flatboats fetched the stuff out of the steamer. They were that boats, and then the hotel had 2 rowing boats and a launch, and our summer that lay off. And of course, they were most local folk just drew their boat up on the beach, and they would only pat them down when they were wanting to get off. And I didn't mind the piers. I just mind the pier at the hotel paddle. But there were 2 piers. There were one a sort of permanent in, and then there were one on rollers that they rolled down. But I didn't mind anything. I mean, I had no minding of there was still fishing and drying fish on the beach when my father got to work, but that was our stopping long array. So I'm minding is just stories that I'm heard for me father. But
would they been gathering whelks?
Well, no, around the shop and that beach, because they were nine at no works. It's no a good place, but they were nine at we came out around the point of Turners out that way, and maybe out below here stuck on that, and they would gather works. But we never had nothing to do with it.
The shop didn't buy
No, the shop didn't buy them.
No. Did you buy eggs?
Yes, we bought eggs.
Yeah.
And then the egg grading station came in Larrock, and the eggs I had to get there. We bought eggs and we bought oo. And latterly when we had the nut where we were buying the oo and shopping it and getting it back as spun yarn. Before that it was just sold as a, what would you say, something to sell, not money off of, but latterly I mean we were using it.
And to sell with the eggs then, did you grade them yourself first, was that your...
No, my first minding of them had, well, they weren't about pretty eggs. We kind of had to select them. We couldn't really grade them very well, but we had to select them, and there would be no chicken's eggs or nothing like that. It just been big eggs, it was really. And we just packed them, and I really do not know where they were sold, because we didn't sell them in the shop. They were packed in wooden crates, and we separated between them. And I might them gone with the truck, but I really don't know where they were sold. They might even just be sold somewhere in Blair or that.
Transport? What about transport? Were they buses?
Not till about 1947. They were a man that, when I was a bairn, that hired the car, and he could, I think, twice a week down Chimison for Snowball. Just an ordinary, what you would call saloon car, and maybe he could have had about 6 folk. After about 1947, I'm not just sure, but that might even been 46, Josie Peterson got a bus, and it was a new bus, and the seats was ribbed with and I can tell you, when you sat 2 hours on that, the lyric and back, it was a punishment. But then he eventually got second-hand seats for somewhere and got them put in instead of that wooden. It was like sitting on what the old trams used to do. But the rights was not that good. And we left Helswick about 9:30, had been nearly 11:30 or we were in Larwick. And it was cold, because of course there were no heating. But that was the first of the buses, and they good on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. But that was a great advance in travel. We, of course, like me, working, it was just the 1.5 day a week, so I can't mind, unless we managed, me and in the other lasses, unless I wrote for her and
got a whole day off and she got a whole day off. That, I mean, we could only go very occasionally to Larry.
When you were a pretty lass, you would...
Well, when I was a pretty lass, my father did have a car. My mother would take us and we would go to my other grandmother and Larry for maybe 2 or 3 weeks at a time. For once, and my mother was dreadfully car sick, so it was, and she couldn't have gone for a day. But had seemed an endless journey. But that was, you didn't again, I suppose in a way we luckily thought we had everything we needed here. There were nothing muckle, we weren't again. You didn't get to Lerwick to seek entertainment then, for you really made your own entertainment. And like me, my sisters could play the accordion and the piano, and Femi Charleston could play the accordion, and Helen Gilbertson could play something, and they would all come to us, and we spent many a night just, and we would have danced over being room and that. And then the dancers, I just needed maybe somebody with a fiddle and an accordion, and you were pleased, that was enough, and they were maybe a dance once a week. And then the Highlands and Islands Film Guild came once a month with the pictures, with films. So you see, we really thought this was all wonderful, and we didn't care what there were better things to do, I swear. But we used to go and sit and freeze at the hall. There's pictures. But it was, it must have been quite good. They were a passing news, and then there'd been a cartoon, and then one big film, which I can't mind what we paid. I think it was maybe only 2 shillings or half a crown. So that was quite good. So as I say, we weren't needing to get to Lerwick that much.
Were you involved in the concert?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was involved with that way. I was a bairn for Jenny Gilbertson used to have concerts. And she had dancing classes, which we go to every Saturday morning. And she learned was a lot of Scottish country dancing, but she learned was ordinary things like waltzing and things like that. That we grew up being able to do. And she had this concerts, and we would do this dancing displays. We did the Highland Fling and the sword dancing, and just all things like that. And she took singing, and she trained the choir. I was at the choir at the kirk, she trained the choir, and so there were lots of things. And the minister had a youth club, and we would have played table tennis and all manner of games like that. And then there were a lot of visiting other folks' houses then, or folk coming to you or something. So we never were short of entertainment.
What can you mind about Jenny Gilbertson?
Well, I mind a great lot about her, because you see, I mind her young. She did had young dancing class, and I must have been happy about maybe 6. And then you see, when I came to, we got to Biden last and chose Biden in Braehead next door. So, and their lasses sort of aged with my younger sisters. So you see, we were a lot mixed together. And Jenny started up the drama club. And then Dr. Gilchrist, he was the doctor then, and he'd done some amateur dramatics when he was at the army, and he took all the producing fair, but she still ran like a drama class, and sort of, she learned was like, well, to stand up, had your head up and speak out and not mumble. And she learned was deportment. We would walk around with books on your heads, and we actually advanced the glasses of water on your head. Yes. I mean, we all were taught. and lots of songs like that we owe to her, and she was a great actress herself, and I mean he took part, and we go to the drama festival in Lerwick, and we go to the music festival with the choir. She did all that. She had endless patience, but also, as well as saying endless patience, when she took the drama, she was fit to throw herself into any part. If she had to show you, she could get up and be this person and show you exactly what you should be like or do or speak like. And then, of course, she got to live with the Eskimos and was away a long while. She was really a wonderful person. And as a young person, my mother minded her doing that filming that she did. I think she first came here on for a holiday and got enamored with the place. Well, she just was a person that had great enthusiasm for life and for everything, and could make you feel enthusiastic as well.
Do you mind anything about another great character for this Perth's, the late Dr. Tammy Anderson?
No.
No.
I had never had any connections with him.
No.
At all. I mean, I mind him and mind listening to him playing and things like that, but I had no connections with him of all.
No.
But there have been quite a few well-known people come out of North me.
Oh, I doubt that.
Yeah. Well, this I got on, and life went by, and we carried on with everything till my father died suddenly in 1975, and by that time the sister that was working with me, she was married and she was wanting to give up. I mean, we got on as long as he was wanting it. She was wanting to give up, and it was a very difficult time for us, for we would look at ourselves that just as a complete going concern, but there were nobody that was prepared to take it on, for you could say it, my father and was to a certain extent, we were grown up with it, and we were grown along with it, but that was a bit of a daunting thing to anybody else to take on. So it was ourselves, bits by bits, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I thought, oh well, I don't know, I'll have a holiday. I got my sister in Bristol for a month, and when I come back, then the man at the shop said, "And would you please come back and work for me?" So I worked for him for 13 years till he sold. And as I told you before, really enjoyed me time with him.
Did he run it very differently, or was it?
Well, he was a man that listened to what you said, and he started and he listened a lot to what I said, and he would ask me about this, and he really treated me as if I still had a share in the business, and sometimes there would be something crop up or some bit of implement, and he would say, "Anna, is this mine, yours, or ours?" And I would say, "Oh, I think we just have furniture all ours." But no, and then he said to me that he thought he would like to go self-service. And I said, well, that was his shop, he'd do what he wanted with. And that was when he built the new extension, and we went self-service, which really, in a lot of ways, you could put an awful lot of more work through your hands being self-service as you ever could when it was counter-service. So there were plenty of things that were still counter-service, that you had to, like cutting bacon and cold meats and all that kind of thing, I still had to be done. But I mean, you could get on with other work while the folk were actually getting their messages. No, I enjoyed my time with him.
What was his name, the man?
John Muir.
John Muir.
He was a Scotsman, but he'd been in Yorkshire, and he was married to a Yorkshire wife, and they actually built Eddie Mode's shop at Norn when Eddie sold, and he'd been there for several years, and I mean I'd known him before, but when we were selling the shop then he whether he thought that would be better or he could not make a road or something, he bought the shop and he sold a wine just in the sun. Why? And then a lot of the time me and the other lasses just ran the shop ourselves because he said he did a lot with fruit and veg and he got to Larrock every 2 or 3 days and sold fruit and veg and Larry. And so we were left to a great extent to our own devices and he really never questioned anything or he never said you should not have done this or you should not have done that. He was really a good boss to work.
Your father gave up the craft, was that because did he find that a bit too much?
Well, I think I would have been 14, so that made me next sister 7 and me next in 4 and the other in 3. And I think that he just thought that that was too much for me mother, working the craft and he couldn't be him to help her, for he had to out every morning, as I say, at 7 o'clock. And well, he would come out for his dinner, but he was never home till 8 o'clock night. By that time, the period range was going to bed. He could really be of no help to her, and I think he just felt it was too much for her. And it maybe was a bit of a wrench in a way, because it was an Irvine man you see at Bigotton Craft, and that was his great grandfather, and had been in the same family, you see, until 1947, but in a way had continued on in the same family because it was his cousin Attie Manson got at Favours, and then when Attie died, that was his sister Chrissy Erter got it, and she had it until she died, and Dr. Bowie, it was only knew what Dr. Bowie bought it, that actually you could say good out to our family. I had no qualms about leaving Larson, but it seemed funny when Jeanette came down here one day and she said, Anna, I have to go to Gateside for something for Stanley, that was Chrissy's son. She said, would you like to come with me, for it'll probably be the last time we're ever in Gateside. And we got in and she did what she used to do, and I got up the stair and I said, Jeanette, do you realise we all 4 were born in this room, and you came, when I come back I would lick it till I packed my bags and come to Gateside. And yet I knew that was absolutely stupid, but I could neither afford to buy Gateside nor live in it. But there was just something appalling about that. Just luckily because my formative years had been spent there. But that was how we came to be in Larson, was it? And then you see my father died and my sisters were all again, and Mommy kept saying it was too big a house, but I could see she didn't really want to leave, and I would never have left her, so I just lived with her there till she died. And then, well, as I say, my pension, by that time I was pension age, and my pension couldn't have hit it Larson, so we had to sell it. I moved here, and I've been perfectly happy. So, but one benefit of moving here was that I could still do all the things I'd done before, and I still was among all the people that I knew.
Right, Anna, I'm going to close for Thank you very much, and that has been fascinating. Fascinating, really. Thank you. Okay.